All right, joining me now to discuss this and the other top stories of the day, Sky News host Liz Storer. Welcome, Liz.
Hello, hello.
And contributor Joe Hildebrand. Great to see you both.
Love to see you. How are you?
Liz, look, I have to ask you about this story before we get on to some of the other topics. It's astounding. I mean, if it wasn't admitted at Senate estimates, if you didn't just hear that official, and that's why I had to show the clip, saying yes, possibly 1 hour, I mean, it would take weeks and weeks to work out. And we don't have a presence on the ground in Gaza, whether someone does have terrorist sympathies or participated in the terror attack itself.
Sadly, I don't find it that shocking at all, Shari, given that our foreign minister has shown time and time again where she really stands with regard to this conflict. It doesn't skip anyone's mind that she doubled funding to UNRWA before the terrorist attacks. Obviously, she's since withdrawn them due to the incomprehensible pressure that was placed upon her. She's still got people, even on the front bench, asking her to reinstate that. I don't think for a minute that she's unaware of the risk that she's importing. David Adler's quite right in saying that 75% of Palestinians, there was a very comprehensive poll done, supported the October 7 massacres. Here in Western democracies, we do not have any kind of point of reference for life in Gaza and the kind of indoctrination that goes on there. When we talk about this tiny strip of land, we are talking about one of the most intensely indoctrinated parts in the known world. And so to think that they have somehow managed to find 2,273 people who have not been indoctrinated to support Hamas or celebrate what occurred on October 7, who aren't bringing their ideology with them, who are totally open to the Western way of life and just completely relieved and grateful to make it here, is simply beyond belief. It doesn't pass the pub test, and that's before we find out that this sad excuse for a security check is all they were vetted by.
It's terrible. Joe, I mean, we've always traditionally placed... You made people jump through hoops when they wanted to become an Australian citizen and try to prove that they adhere to Australian values. I mean, what's happened to that? That's gone out the window. Now we don't care if someone adheres to Australian values or not. Why are we giving away our cohesive multicultural society?
Look, it is obviously concerning, and I would probably say, firstly, it's amazing how quickly the bureaucracy can move when it wants to, isn't it? Anyone who's tried to get a new passport certainly takes more than an hour. My understanding, I would assume that these visas that are granted in an hour or in a day or whatever it may be, it's not that they're taking that amount of time to do the security checks. It's that the person already has enough material information, as the official said, before them, where they can say, oh, actually, he's ticked all these boxes, it's all fine, blah, blah.
So they don't care if they're Hamas, they're just doing identity.
You need to take the time to vet those docs,
as I have always said, it is naive to think that you can just have a war against Hamas and not have a war against the broader Palestinian population, because through no fault of their own, they have been indoctrinated, they've been bombarded with propaganda. Terrorists are treated as freedom fighters and martyrs. They're given financial incentives by way of compensation. So it's in a mother's interest to tell her son to go and blow himself up at a checkpoint. So, of course, this does something to you. This screws you over enormously. So I think if you were going to say, well, we can't have any Palestinians come here who secretly in the back of their mind have any association with Hamas or have any sympathies with Hamas, then you might as well not have a sort of humanitarian program at all, because almost every one of them is going to at some point have that.
But also, Liz, what about the Arab neighbouring countries and nations? Why aren't they taking some of the... Why is it up to Australia, half a world away?
I believe this is because they know. They are familiar with life in Gaza. They are familiar with the indoctrination, and they too are very territorial in terms of guarding the peace that they have in their own countries. There are tens and tens of other Arab countries surrounding them, other Muslim countries surrounding them, in which they ought to be far much more at home.
They want to use these people as human shields and use them as human fodder, so that inevitably when Israel does kill civilians to get at Hamas, they can then jump up and down and say, look, this is what the horrible Israeli colonisers are doing. This is why we have to wipe them out.
And I think that's part and parcel of it. But the world is also looking at them going, yes, but you're right next door and you could have saved them. We know Hamas is using them as human shields.
Even the Palestinians in the
these are far richer countries who have the means to take them in.
The refugee camps in Palestine don't want to leave them because they feel that that would forfeit their claim. So again, these are people who are using themselves or being used by, manipulated by Hamas, by other Islamist extremist organisations to try to perpetuate this sort of historical victimhood so that they can't go back because they still have to say, see, I'm still stuck in this refugee camp, 3 generations later because of what Israel did in 1948.
Right.
That is the narrative there.
All right, we're going to keep on this story through the week.